Arizona rental laws outline the rules in the state regarding lease agreements and eviction. We'll overview the laws for standard lease agreements, month-to-month lease agreements, and evictions. Standard lease agreement. A standard lease outlines the terms between a landlord and tenant for the renting of a property. A standard lease is commonly a one-year fixed period and is the most commonly used rental contract. Month-to-month lease agreement. A month-to-month lease is an agreement between a landlord and tenant that renews automatically every month. The agreement terminates upon notice by either the landlord or tenant. The notice must be provided by the landlord or a tenant a minimum of 30 days prior to termination as required by law. Required disclosures. In Arizona, the landlord is required to provide the following disclosures as part of the lease agreement. Bed bugs. The landlord is required to provide tenants with educational materials on how to handle bed bugs and how they spread. Non-refundable fees. Any fee in the agreement that is non-refundable must clearly state that it is non-refundable. Otherwise, the fee is legally refundable. Residential Landlord and Tenant Act. Before or at the start of a tenancy, the landlord must provide written notice informing the tenant that the Arizona Residential Landlord and Tenant Act is available on the Arizona Department of Housing's website. Move-in checklist. The landlord must provide a move-in checklist with the lease agreement specifying existing damages, as well as written notice stating that the tenant has the right to be present during the move-out inspection. Name and address. The landlord must provide the name and address of a person authorized to manage the premises, whether it be the owner themselves or a management company. Shared utilities. If the landlord bills the tenant for shared utilities, the charge breakdown must be included in the rental contract. The landlord may reimburse themselves for the administrative costs for calculating and paying the utility. Taxes. If the business pass-through tax changes in the area, the landlord may modify the amount of rent to reflect the increased tax with at least 30 days notice to the tenant. This option to increase the rent due to the business pass-through tax must be stated in the lease for changes to occur. Landlord access. In Arizona, the landlord is required to provide at least 2 days notice before entering the property for repairs or any non-emergency reason. Security deposit laws. In Arizona, the landlord may only request up to 1.5 months rent at lease signing. After the termination of the lease, the landlord is required to return the money within 14 days. Eviction laws. There are 3 legally accepted causes for eviction in Arizona. Irreparable breach, if the tenant commits an irreparable breach or acts that are found to constitute a nuisance that threatens the health or safety of the landlord has the power to issue an immediate notice to vacate. Non-payment of rent. If the tenant is late on rent, the landlord can issue a 5-day notice to pay or quit. This gives the tenant 5 days to pay the rent in full along with any penalties, or vacate the property. If they do neither, the landlord may be forced to seek an eviction from the court. Non-compliance. If the tenant breaks any other portion of the lease other than late rent, the landlord may give the tenant 10 days to either comply with the lease or vacate the property.